Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So here I have another 10 pens currently inked for this week. I think let's just go through these briefly one by one. We'll go through them in a little bit more detail and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right we have the classic Pens LB5 and this is the Kaoseki. We have the Sailor King of Pen Pro Gear Ocean. We have the Sailor King of Pen Sakuranagar. We have a Pilot Custom Yarushi in the Vermillion. We have a Visconti Comelot. We have a Visconti Last Templar Jacques de Molay. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Bronze Age. A Visconti Homo Sapiens Dark Age. We have a Parker Duofold Prestige in the blue chevron. And we have a Platinum Curadas. So I think let's take a look at these pens in a little bit more detail. We have the lovely classic Pens LB5 in the Kaoseki. And this is, Kaoseki basically means metal ore. And this is although a classic Pens LB5, it is made by Sailor. And this is the LB5 classic pens or Lambrou pens. And this is a beautiful pen. So it's made of this diffusion bonded acrylic here. And this diffusion bonded acrylic is basically acrylic that is fused together at the molecular level under high pressure. And then they cut it and you get these lovely sort of patterns going on here. It really is a lovely pen. And as with all Sailor King of Pens, this has a Sailor King of Pen nib, and this is a medium nib, which is really more of a Western fine, and you can just see how narrow that tip is on that pen. It's a 21 karat gold nib, and it's a cartridge converter, and I really love how these feel in my hands. They are really, really nice pens, and I honestly wanted to get some more classic Pens LB5s, but unfortunately they are very expensive nowadays because they were limited edition runs of 50 in each colour, and obviously I have one colour here. I love them in some other colours, but unfortunately unless I want to spend a lot of money, then I have to look at other Sailors, and this is where I've looked at these two Sailors in 2020. So more recently in May I bought the Sailor King of Pen Pro Gear, and this is the Ocean Special Edition, and this came out in 2019, and it's a pen that I really did like a look of, and I do like it a lot. And the only thing that I don't like so much are these flattened ends. I prefer the tapered ends of the regular Sailor King of Pens. This does make it a little bit shorter than a regular King of Pen, and even shorter still than the LB5. But this also has a Sailor King of Pen nib on, and this is a medium nib as well, which basically means more of a Western fine nib. But I do like it. I do find though they are a little bit short in my hands when I start holding up a little bit more towards the threads. I can post the cap if I want to, and it then actually makes it a lot more longer, but I don't normally post my caps, but I can do on this one if I wanted to, but I haven't really needed to. But you can see here the very sort of difference here. It's like almost a finial difference here compared to the Sailor King of Pen, and then the classic Pens LB5 is even longer than the Sailor King of Pen. The next pen I have inked up this week is the Sailor King of Pen, and this is a Sakuranagar, and this is a maki-e pen, and it's a Raden pen, but this really is a beautiful, stunning pen. You can just see there all of that maki-e Raden. It's just absolutely beautiful with that abalone shell, and also the gold dust in the body and the cap. And again, being a Sailor King of Pen, it has a Sailor King of Pen nib, and this is a broad nib this time. I wanted a broad nib in this one, and I picked this up in, I want to say, when was it? It was October 2019. So this is actually about a year old now, actually. This is yeah, it was around at the London Pen Show. So I like this pen a lot, and I do write with it a lot. I only have it inked up with one ink, and that is KWZ Grapefruit, but it's an ink that I love and I think works well in that pen. Maybe I should start looking at some other inks, but I do like that KWZ Grapefruit ink. The next pen is this one, and this is the Pilot Custom Yarushi in the Vermillion, and the Vermillion being red, so it is a Yarushi pen, and it's a very, very large pen, and it's in terms of length and in terms of girth. And I've done a review of this a while ago, and you can see here it has a number 30 size nib, and those nibs are around about the same size as a Western number 10 nib. You don't actually get a Western number 10 nib. Number 6 and number 8, I believe. I don't think I've ever seen a 10, but it's bigger than the number 8 size nibs. But this pen is quite girthy and quite long, but I love it. I love the feel of the Yarushi there. It's just a really nice pen, and I love very large nibs. And people ask me why I like large nibs, and it's mostly because they tend to have a little bit more of a bounce to them, and it's just something that I prefer. I prefer a cushioned, sort of almost shock-absorbed sort of writing experience, and I get that out of those larger nibs. A lot of the number 8 size nibs are like that. The next pen I have inked up this week is this Camelot from Visconti, and this is a beautiful pen. The chainmail is absolutely exquisite there. It's a beautiful, beautifully designed pen, and so intricate there, that chainmail, and then it goes into like a herringbone effect around the body there, and it also has gold accents as well, and also a gold sword clip. And the pen itself has a Visconti 18 karat gold medium nib, and although I find the section a little bit on the narrow side, I tend to hold it up a little bit more around the threads, but I do like it. I like how this pen writes. It's a really, really lovely writing nib. It's a medium nib, and I just love it. So that's another pen that I have inked up this week. The next pen is the Visconti Last Templar Edition Jacques de Molay, and again another really nice pen. You can just see here the amount of detail. Now you have chainmail there, but it's a different style of chainmail as to what was on the Camelot. But this looks a very heavy pen, but it's not. It's actually, I wouldn't say a lightweight pen. It's not light, but it's a pen that I find very well balanced in my hand, and it comes with a 23 cat palladium medium nib there. But I like it, and it has a massive step down, but that step down doesn't bother me. I tend to normally hold it around about here, so around about sort of on the threads again. I used to hold my nibs, or my pens I should say, right down towards the nib in the feed, but then what I would find is that a lot of time my middle finger protrudes, and that would start touching the feed or the bottom there of the pen, and my middle finger would always get inked. And so I started actually finding it more comfortable moving my fingers up more towards threads, and that way then my finger doesn't touch feeds of pens and it doesn't become inked, or rarely becomes inked. Now there are a number of different grips. I typically use the tripod grip, so that's 3 sort of fingers there, but more lately I've actually been doing that kind of grip, so having my middle finger just tucked underneath and just balancing the pen on that. It doesn't really matter how you hold the pen, but it's just something that I found that I've actually changed more recently this year in how I write, and sometimes I find it a little bit more comfortable that way, and probably a little bit less hand cramp as well when I'm writing. The next pen I have is the Visconti Homo Sapiens. This is the lava, and it's the Bronze Age. And the Bronze Age is a really lovely sort of material. It's made of basaltic lava mixed, ground down and then mixed with resin. And it comes up with this really sort of soft but very tactile and hard, very durable material. And it has bronze accents, hence the Bronze Age. And this comes with a 23 cat palladium. This is a fine nib. And this is one of my earlier fine nibs, which I really do like. And I think my first one was the one on the London Fog, and then I had this a little bit later. But this is really sort of well balanced in my hand. The only thing I do find is the ink capacity on these are not that great. I think they hold about probably about 1.5 milliliters of ink, 1 to 1.5 milliliters, because it's not a double reservoir like maybe some of the Homo sapiens, other Homo sapien double reservoir versions are. But I have that one inked up this week, and then I have this one inked up as well. And again, this is another Visconti Homo sapiens lava edition. This is the Dark Age, and I do love this. I don't normally gravitate towards black pens, but this is a nice stealth look, and for me, I just like this look. So you can just see there, even the clip is stealthed out. It's got a ruthenium trim on it, and also a lovely ruthenium plated nib there. It's a 23 cat palladium medium nib, plated ruthenium. But again, like this really just, it feels very smooth, almost a little bit like a rubber, sort of rubbery texture, but it's not the same. It's like a smooth texture, but it's very hard to the touch. And a lot of people say that these feel a little bit warm to the touch. I don't really notice that, to be honest, on the Lava Edition pens. If you have one, let me know if you think that it feels more warmer than, say, a resin pen. It definitely feels more different, but not, I wouldn't say warm to the touch for me anyway. The next pen is this Parker, and this is a duo fold, and it's a Prestige, and it's a blue chevron. And I fell in love with this probably, I think it was about 3 years ago now, and I really love this, and I was able to pick it up for what at the time was a good price. There was a sale on, and I bought this from WH Smith's, and this was, I think at the time, retailing for around £650, and I picked it up for about 400, so it was a very good deal at the time. And you can see here it has a Parker Duofold nib, and this really is a beautiful pen. Now, it is all made of metal, so it is quite heavy. It's not a light pen, but it's also not as heavy as some of my other pens. But you can see there the arrow clip, and it just really does look nice. And I love these chevrons. I'm tempted actually to get one in the black as well at some point, because I do like that pen, although I do find it a little short to the kind of pens that I'm now more used to. And then we have this pen, and yes, I did bite that sort of bandwagon or that bullet and went for the Platinum Curadas. I thought I would give it a try, and it's a retractable nib. Now, these do have some issues. I've got a cracked feed on mine. A lot of people are saying that they have a cracked feed. You probably can't even see it there because it doesn't actually show itself until you look under either like a loop or a magnifying glass. I also find that although I find these fairly comfortable to write with, I tend to rotate my pens slightly to the right when I write across like an A4 page. So when I'm rotating that clip starts digging into my finger here, and that clip itself I find is quite sharp, and just because of the angle of it, and that does create some issues for me. I do like the retractable sort of part of this pen, and I find that the nib writes really well. It's a still nib, but for me, like, I decided I would try that one out and pick one up and see, and if I didn't like it, they don't cost a lot of money. It's about £75, €75, and I think about $85, $90, something around that. So not that expensive compared to some of the other pens I have here inked up this week. So I think with that, let's go and do a writing sample. So the first pen is the classic Pens LB5 in the Kaoseki. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, this is, if you recall, I said a medium nib, but it writes more like a Western fine. So it is quite a narrow nib, at least for me, anyway. So this is the classic Pens LB5 in the Kaoseki, and it is a medium, and it's a 21 karat gold nib, as all Sailor King of pen nibs are. And then the ink in here is Pilot Owashizuku Sakushi, which is basically translates to horse's tail, but that is a nice coloured ink. The next pen is the Sailor King of Pen Pro Gear Ocean. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And I always do find that the ink in here that I have is a dry ink for most of the inks from the manufacturer. So this is a Sailor King of Pen, and it's the Pro Gear, and it's the Ocean SE Special Edition, and it's a medium, and it's a 21 karat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Pelican Edelstein, and it's aquamarine. And I typically do find that a lot of the Pelican Edelstein inks are more on the drier side. Certainly in a medium or a fine nib, I do find that they're not as sort of fine or not as dry in maybe a broad nib. The next pen is the Sailor King of Pen Sakuranagar. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And this is a broad nib from Sailor. And you can see here, this is quite wet. So this is a Sailor. You can just see the difference there already. It's a King of Pen. And it's Sakura Nagar. And it is a broad 21 karat gold nib. And then the ink in here is KWZ Grapefruit, which is a beautiful reddish ink, or reddish orangey ink. The next pen is the Pilot Custom Yarushi in the Vermillion. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And you can just see here that this is semi-wet, but it's also a very fine nib. So this is the Pilot Custom Yarushi in the Vermillion, and it's a fine medium, and it's an 18 karat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Mont Blanc, Corn, Poppy, Red. And I might actually change this out for another red ink, one that maybe flows a little bit better, because I do find that every now and again, if I do push the nib, I do get a little bit of railroading on the downstroke. I find that if I've just inked up the pen, it's not a problem. There is sort of more of an ink flow issue with some of these pilot nibs, I think. And I've noticed that if I put a drier ink in there, it becomes worse. And I think Mont Blanc Corn Poppy Red is quite a wet sort of ink. But I might try another ink and just see what I can get out of the pen. The next pen inked up this week is the Visconti Camelot. So we'll do an ink swatch. And you can just see that this is quite a wet writing nib. So this is the Visconti Camelot. And it is a medium 18 cat gold nib. This is the older 18 cat gold nibs, not the newer ones. And the ink in here is Mont Blanc. And it's lavender, purple. But that also is a nice sort of lavender purpley kind of ink. The next pen is the Visconti Last Templar Jacques de Molay. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And you'll see that this can be quite a wet writing nib. So this is the Visconti Jacques de Molay. And he was the Last Templar. And this is a medium 23 cat palladium nib. And then the ink in here is Diamine Earl Grey, which is a beautiful grey ink, and it is my favourite grey ink. The next pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Lava Bronze Age. We'll do an ink swatch here, and you can just see how wet this nib writes. It really is a wet writing nib. And this is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Bronze Age and it is a fine 23 cat palladium nib. And then the ink in here is Mont Blanc lavender purple. But again, that's a very nice ink. The next pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Lava Edition Dark Age. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And I do find that this is a very wet nib. So this is the Visconti, and it's the Homo Sapiens Dark Age. And it is a medium 23 cat palladium nib. And then the ink in here is Pilot Oroshizuku Kirisami. But that, I always use that ink in this pen. I find Kirisami quite a nice ink that is actually quite waterproof actually. So it's very good for maybe using on envelopes where you are a little bit more concerned about ink sort of running if it gets wet. The next pen is the Parker Duofold Prestige Blue Chevron. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now I do find that this is quite a wet writing nib as well, and although it's a gold nib, it writes like a nail. It has no flex to the nib whatsoever, even though it has a very narrow or thin feed there. So this is the Parker. You can just see here, this is a medium nib, but it writes more like a broad. So this is the Parker Duofold. Prestige Blue Chevron, and it is a medium 18 cat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Parker Quink Blue, which is actually a very nice, I would say underrated blue ink. It's an ink that I don't use a lot, and I really probably should. And then last but not least, we have the Platinum Curadas. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, this is actually not a bad sort of nib in terms of wetness. It's not anywhere close to a fire hose, but it's not overly dry either. So this is the Platinum Curadas, and it is a medium nib, which is as broad as you can get, strangely enough, and it's a still nib. And then the ink in here is Pelikan Edelstein, and it's Star Ruby. And it also could be that maybe this pen is a little bit more on the dry side because it is a Pelikan ink. So let's take a look at these pens inked up one more time. We have a classic Pens LB5 in the Kaoseki with a medium 21 karat gold nib inked up with Pilot Washizuku Sakushi. We have a Sailor King of Pen Pro Gear Ocean in a special edition with a medium 21 karat gold nib inked up with Pelikan Edelstein Aqua Marine. We have a Sailor King of Pen Sakuranagar in a broad 21 karat gold nib inked up with KWZ Grapefruit. We have a Pilot Custom Yarushi Vermillion in a fine medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Mont Blanc Corn Poppy Red. We have a Visconti Comelot in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Mont Blanc Lavender Purple. We have a Viscontijacques de Molay in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Diamine Earl Grey. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Bronze Age in a fine 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Mont Blanc Lavender Purple. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Dark Age in a medium 23 karat palladium nib inked up with Pilot Washizuku Kirisami. We have a Parker Duofold Prestige Blue Chevron in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Parker Quink Blue. And then last but not least, we have the Platinum Curadas in a medium steel nib inked up with Pelikan Edelstein Star Ruby. So there you have it. That's my currently inked pens for this week. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.